Hello, everyone, and welcome to InvoNews Podcast, where we discover startups and latest technology trends. This is your host, Milhan, and today we have Diego Hotter, the co founder and CEO of dynamic agriculture tech platform ucrop.it. Good morning, and welcome to the show, Diego. How are you doing?
Yes, thank you very well and thrilled to be here.
Thrilled to have you as well. So, starting off with a brief introduction, ucrop is a blockchain and on-farm digital verification platform that is delivering sustainability across agriculture farming. And in this episode, Diego will further shed some light on his journey of becoming a co-founder of such a sustainable blockchain platform. Ucrop is currently operating in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and USA. So let's start off the basic first question. Why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself? I know that you've been in the industry for more than 20 plus years. So your background, was there a previous firm that you were working in as well? Just in your entire experience and journey.
Right, thank you. I am 45 years old. I think that's the first thing I would like to address. Because many people think that entrepreneurs are very young people, and that, although it's true, the average is mostly in the 40s and mid 40s age, as I am. I come from decades of history career in agriculture. I used to be working for large seed biotechnology firms. Was responsible of bringing biotechnologies into the Latin American market, and spent a decade in doing so in different countries in the soybean and corn business space. Before that, I used to work for a commodity hedge fund. So I don't know what I came to master, and in writing the ucrop.it white paper back then in 2016, I think it's a result of the experience I had in the industry for a decade, right? And being able to see the problems and understand the farmers and the overall value chain needs was one thing that eventually led me to thinking that blockchain could be a solution for this. And I am an MBA from the University of Edinburgh, specialized in economics and finance, and I have a background in marketing on the bachelor's undergraduate degree in Argentina. But I have started up other projects in either in the food space or in the real estate business. And most recently, $10 million real estate complex, the fashion of a Tuscany village. There's a commercial, yes, like a commercial mall, but it resembles Tuscany castle that is here in Argentina as well. And so I think that my entrepreneurial experience also helped me in trying to tackle this global issue with ucrop.it, which is how do we bring more sustainable crops to solve for the climate challenges that we have ahead on a world scale.
That is a very diverse portfolio, I must say, Diego. Starting off with, working agriculture, moving to hedge funds, then having a background in marketing, economics and finance. I mean, that's a lot of platforms that you've had your foot in. And
Yeah,
just
sure.
to say, no, you don't look 45. You look way younger than that.
But thank you. I will take that.
But I do agree on that
every
part.
day.
But I do agree on that part that whenever people think about startups or a successful startup, they think of very young, very young people, like maybe in the early 20s or whatnot. But experience actually helps a lot when you're just starting a new business. So I'm pretty sure your business experience in hedge fund and your background in marketing must have helped you in developing your crop as well.
Well, actually, I think that the key reason why ucrop.it is a success today is because of the team. And not only the 75 people company that support us, the co-founders in building this endeavor to a global scale, which we are, thank God, pretty much full of talented people that is committed to doing that because of our vision. But also, I have to address the fact that Marco Bota, our COO, and Matthias O'Keefe, our CTO, are as instrumental as me in building this, right? It wouldn't be possible to have the company that we have today, wouldn't be for their contributions that were there from the start of the company. We started up with Matthias, the company, in order to make traceability at the farm level, to happen on a verified stance and have remote certainty of what's going on at farm level, through crypto confidential crop stories that farmers can share with companies to acknowledge different objectives. And then when we were in the role, like 2 years of building this company, Marcos Bota, our COO that came from Cargill, Black River Asset Management Unit, returned to the country, Argentina, and said, hey, you know what, guys, I love what you're doing in the profit, and sustainability is coming like over time in the next 2-3 years, and it will gonna be a big time trend. And crops will need to be differentiated based on the sustainable information that they can produce on a verified way, because you know that sustainability and regenerative activities are mostly transparent to the eye, and row crops needs that visibility should they want to address climate objectives on how much the carbon footprint on those crops was, on the environmental impact coefficients of managing the agrochemicals on that farm, the fertilizers, responsible management, the use of land, and those things were not things that were there before when we were trying to sort out how a corn or a soybean or even a tomato is being produced, because we do not know how crops are being produced. But for challenging the climate objectives ahead and having crops transform into climate smart crops, we need to have that verified traceability information on how crops are being produced. And that was some vision that Marcos brought along. And of course, Matthias, that has more than 20 years in software development with 5 years of specialization in blockchain, and have deployed blockchain services to corporates, big corporate companies, and to governments through Latin America. He's very much the correct guy to put all these projects together. And I think that we made a very good fit as a co-founder teams that enable us to bring talented people along with us to produce this company that nowadays is tracing more than 1 million hectares of verified smart crops in these 4 geographies that you mentioned on only 2 years of crops operations.
That's actually a very huge number. And I would say that it's a very big accomplishment, because I don't think many people actually thought about associating agriculture with tech, and in a sustainable way, something that is good for the environment and for the climate as well. And as you said, that was your, basic thing that you guys wanted to work at. So did that idea stem from this as well? The crop market, making it more sustainable, the idea of entering the agriculture tech space?
So that was our first driver, because again, the last 11,000 years since wheat was brought up into the earth as an extensive crop to feed in the world. That happens 11,000 years ago, until just 5 years ago. So from the Egyptians until 5 years ago, pretty much the need was to feed the world, right? I mean, no one will question itself what is on this corn, how it was produced. You just want the corn, you wanted the wheat or the soybeans in order to be able to feed yourself or feed the animals or whatever. Now that agriculture explains 30% of CO2 global emissions, and 90% of that happens from the seed to the harvest. In order to address the fact that agriculture has to be part of the solution, and the grower is the one entitled to recapture those CO2 from the air, and made a huge contribution to the world in cooling the planet. Now agriculture has the opportunity not only to feed the world, but to cool the planet. But in order to do so, we have to move from a conventional agriculture to a sustainable, environmentally friendly agriculture. And we call that climate smart crops. Crops that are being managed to specific objectives on sustainability and regenerative practice that, once verified, because they really happen at the farm level, they are capturing as a result of those crop managements the CO2 from the air. Because otherwise, it's all greenwashing. It's all about we want to do something, but we are actually not doing it, and we're
Yeah.
measuring things that are not happening. So our technology first makes sure that the farmers can make a sustainable use of land by accounting on non-deforestation, impact of native forests, of wetlands, of biodiversity on the plots that those farmers are producing, and then making sure that the practices that those farmers are following in terms of no-tip farming, cover crops, substitute of fertilizer, responsible use of agrochemicals are all target to on a verified realization at the field of those practices to sequestering and offsetting CO2 from the environment and producing a verified crop story that is immediately recorded on the blockchain for
Yeah.
sharing purposes that accounts for how climate smart those crops were in the way the farmers has produced those, and the farmers endorse that with their electronic signature to add value to that, and ultimately a global supplier. These are the firms that have, for the last century, been certifying farm process at the field, come into the crop story, and with their own electronic identity, realize all the digital evidence on how the farm management practice has been realized, and sign those for producing a second audit statement seal that will
Yeah.
accomplish that crop story in the way it was produced. And this is important. It's important because prior to this, those companies will send people on the field
Yeah.
and check boxes and seeing that the farmer is complying with that A, B, or C step. Whereas you cannot do that when it comes to millions of hectares on the global
Absolutely.
stage for accounting for sustainability trends, because there's no army of people that can do that. So it's in the hands of the farmer, the responsibility of accounting for that, but without losing the remote certainty and objective empirical evidence of how he accomplished that.
So it's kind of like it's cost efficient, it's time efficient, and it's environment efficient as well. Whatever you were supposed to do in weeks, you can now do in minutes or hours. So sustainability and the idea of climate smart crops. I didn't think I've heard much about it because I personally feel like that it has always been very understated. The agriculture department and agriculture technology. People did fish farming, fish and technology. That was a thing for a while as well, but agriculture and technology and thinking of in the way that we're just not thinking about the environment right now, but what it's going to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I think that's a huge step, and that's a huge leap for us as mankind as well, and in terms of technology as well, that you guys are combining blockchain thing, something that is very new in the market, something people are just discovering right now, and they're trying to get a feel of it, and you've actually applied that technology and helping farms and helping crops and helping the environment as well. So absolute kudos to you and to your team because it's a marvelous effort, to be very honest. And coming back to that, would you mind telling me that how many people do you actually have on your team right now? Because I suppose that the back end operations would take a lot of manpower, because since everything is going digital, you need somebody to maintain the system as well, to make sure everything is running smoothly. And also, since you're actually operating in more than 4 countries right now, so do you have your team segregated? Are they all working remotely just from one place? What's the quota for that?
So we were born pretty much during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So one positive side of that, if any, was the fact that we were born remote and we continue to do so. We are 75 full-time employees. We do not have an office. I mean, we are all remotely working together through virtual spaces, and it works. I mean, people are entitled to
That's the
what they
best.
do. We are
That's the
making.
best way to work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but, I mean, that's the only way we know how to work. But yes, it's a challenge, especially growing that fast. 40,
Mhm.
35 people are on the product development side. That would be um, developers, product managers, scrum masters, functionaries that are spread all over geographies, from Peru to the United States to Venezuela, Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. We have many people that, of course, I mean, they are set in different geographies working for ucrop.it on build the product. And then we have a similar bunch of people at the field, because we have agronomists that help farmers digitize their crop stories to make sense for these climate smart objectives that we trace. And those peoples we already have like 24 in Argentina, others 4 in Paraguay, other 3 in Uruguay. We have 1 in Brazil, and we have 1 in the United States. So those people are located at each area where we operate, and they are at 1 hour distance from the farmer. So they're already also remote. And then we have 10 people on the staff and the managerial roles, such as me, my fellow co-founders, and the leadership team that help us pursue this company. So that we meet every once a week, but pretty much we are all focusing on accomplishing our result objectives.
That's actually great that you guys are spread in multiple countries at the moment, but you still are also connected and you're also passionate about working for the same thing. And I sometimes it can be, a little bit difficult when you're working virtually because you have people on field, but you have people sitting in front of the camera as well. So coordinating can be a little bit difficult. But I would actually like to talk more about blockchain technology. I understand that it is helpful for tracking plant growth, the quality of seed that is being produced, the transparency of transactions for the farmers as well. But what more does it does in ucrop? I think these are like the basic ones that it does for agriculture technology. But as ucrop, I know that it's the fundamental basis of it. So what more does blockchain technology
Yes.
bring into it?
So think about this. We were accelerated by the Creative Destruction Lab blockchain stream in Toronto, Canada. This is one of the major blockchain accelerators in the world, and we were able to go through from 5,000 companies to the selected 50, and we ended up being the one of the few dozens that participated in the program. And at the end of the program, Scott Estorneta, this is the Scott, is along with Stuart Harvard, the guys that invented blockchain in 1991 out of the Xerox laboratories. And now Scott not only is considered the father of blockchain worldwide, but also it has a VC fund. And we are, of course, venture capital funded. We have many different institutional investors on our cap table. And one of those are UN partners. Actually, they were the ones that led our previous last round. And Scott invested in us. I even have it recorded on a video. It was a major event for us because the way we use blockchain, he embedded blockchain for timestamps, registries that happens in a verified way, in an immutable way that everyone can be sharing on a digital cloud-based manner. So he first embedded the blockchain protocol as a public ledger that will verify transactions that are made on an immutable base. Then Satoshi Nakamoto came along, built the blockchain network upon the blockchain protocol that Scott invented. Scott is mentioned 6 times on the Satoshi Nakamoto paper, Bitcoin. But the very essence of the blockchain invention was not the cryptocurrency, it was to provide certainty on a collective effort. What is more collective than the agricultural activity? Because you have a lot of farmers worldwide trying to produce crops for a bunch of people in the world, and those crops are funneled through different companies, which can be traders, input companies, biotechnology companies, and chemical companies. They all have a need to relate to those growers in the way those crops are being farmed. But then again, those crops are being farmed in the Cerrado Brazil, in Argentina, in the Pampas, in the United States, in Nebraska, in China, wherever, and Paraguay. So they're being farmed on decentralized locations through people that are at the farm pursuing their own interests. How you make those interests and objectives to converge is a major proof of concept on the blockchain case. And the way you do that is the way it's not about what you are tracing. It's not about the genetics footprints. It's not about the sustainability parameters of the soybeans. It's not about the responsibility of agrochemical crop protection products, which all that are objectives that we trace. It's about how you relate the farmers through digital agreements that can be blockchain recorded for them to subscribe to specific protocols that are favored by a company to comply to the company's sustainability interests and objectives, for the farm to farm those crops in that manner, so it has value for the farmer and the company alone, so it becomes profitable for them to produce the crops with this information on the way those crops were produced, and then share this information and then a mutable basis through the blockchain recording of this information to produce a crop story that will tell the story on how these crops were farmed in resemblance of these company's objectives. And then the company can reward the farmers on monetary incentives for doing so. So the farmer gets to earn more money out of showing how or she produced those crops to accomplish with the company's objective that they are relating. And mostly these companies, for example, they have sustainability products they have to meet in terms of carbon sequestration, in terms of responsible use of chemicals, in terms of fertilizer use, in terms of sustainable use of lands. And they need a vehicle in order to relate with the farmers and reward them for this practice. But if there's no crop story, and even so, if the crop story can be cheated or will be falsified or will not be reliable, so if the crop story is not verified, then these companies cannot account for that crop story result to impact their labels, their process. So what the blockchain does in this case is not only to be able to relate these growers through binding digital agreements that will enable these companies to use that data to impact their product, their process, their labels, but also to produce the necessary remote certainty verification that crops have been farmed that way in specific compliance with that protocol, in a way that the immutability registry can be shared for these companies to be to have the peace of mind that they are using information that is verified, produced with remote certainty, and that when they make a climate smart claim, there's no greenwashing involved in doing so.
So blockchain makes sure all the protocols are followed. It makes sure that all the farmers' information is actually accurate as well, and it's safe. So whenever they're trying to tell their crop story, it's genuine, it's authentic, and then there is no proof that this is wrong or this can be falsified because the data is protected over ledgers. I think that
I'm verified on the same ledgers, but we use different sort of technology of artificial intelligence technology with labeling, with the combination of geospatial satellite images with geolocalized photographs, where the farmer is intended to exploit that specific land, and different algorithms that creates the data sets that provide that remote certainty that gets blockchain recorded to support a specific claim that the grower is doing that crop the A way or the B way. And so this supporting information along with the farmer's signature endorsement on the way he's producing the crops enables a global surveyor to come along afterwards and verify that digital evidence that is in accordance to these objectives and the way the crop has to be farmed because it was agreed to be farmed that way to the protocol, and revise the immutable registries and evidence blockchain recorded with the farmer's endorsement, and produce the verification statement that provides the company's understanding that those objectives has been met.
This actually makes a lot of sense because then there's no, proof that things can go wrong and they can take a sudden deep dive down and things might not work out because it's protected. The first thing that everybody is looking for whenever they, sign up for new technology is that it's protected. The data cannot be falsified, and everything is true to all, true on all levels. And I think that this transparency that you're providing through your platform ucrop, it's just out there for everybody to see. So there's no point on holding back your story, holding back on what crops you're producing or what's your crop story or whatever region you're in, because there's transparency and all. So I think it's a very good initiative for farmers as well, because they get to share their story and they get to bring in more business through your platform. So it's like a win-win situation for everybody.
And you mentioned a point that is very important, and it's the fact that because blockchain data is encrypted, farmers are in 100% control of their data, but then they get to choose to whom they will share the data for and in exchange of what benefits. And they choose the digital agreement of the company they want to impact with their crop story data. Once they sign that agreement, they are providing a key for that company or only that company alone to use that crop story for that tenor, which is mostly a duration of one crop season. Then the company has to renew the crop season to use the next crop season crop story, right? Otherwise, it cannot find it anymore, the information. But it's in the power of farmer to disencrypt this information for the matter of the purpose of this company using it. So yes, the blockchain encryption enables the farmers to be in full control of the data, share with the companies they feel more comfortable with, and receive in exchange of a clear benefit that they receive in doing so. And the company gets to benefit from reliable remote certainty data. I rather use remote certain data than truthful data because we actually replace the trust components by the certainty, right? Verification component. And so, and they can use these claims and this data to impact their product, their brands, their products, the labels, or the process with the certainty that the farmer has produced these crops in such a way that is verified. And so there's no greenwashing involved because otherwise, imagine a company just 2 weeks ago, KLM, the airline, was fined, right, $1 million because of claiming that their passengers were flying net zero. Whereas they came along and they say, okay, show me how your passengers are flying net zero. Yes, we are offsetting the airplane emissions with planting trees in Panama. Seems out of the Bloomberg news I just read, seems they could not support the traceability on how those trees planted on Panama were somewhat in a clear manner, with certainly verifying that they were offsetting those or producing enough sustainable evidence to produce the carbon offsetting to offset those airline emissions, and then got fined because of greenwashing. And this is something that is important because it's important. Yes, it's important, and ultimately is of the utmost important that the information is reliable because we need to understand that those CO2 emissions are being sequestered or offset in a real manner. But then there's a huge risk involved in the companies that make climate claims that are not fully fundamented or being able to be traced to the very origin of the hectare where that offsetting are being produced. And that is what we are trying to solve out for the benefit of farmers, companies, and the world as a whole, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody wants to have that sort of power in their hand that their true story comes forward, and they get to decide whether they want to, like you said, that they get to decide whether they want to share the information with another company or not. So it actually works out in their favor. But other than that, are you planning on introducing any new feature in ucrop platform? I understand the base is blockchain, and it's very diversified, and there's like no stop to it and no end to it. But is there any other new sorry, feature that you want to add to the platform? And in terms of improving ucrop more or diversifying it more, what are your plans on it?
Yes, so we are in the business of making digital verification for climate smart crops to happen on a global stage, right? In order to being able to deliver the promise that climate smart agriculture uh, can be a global model of production, right? And solving for the piece of the 30% of CO2 emissions that we can help managing in order for the agriculture to be able to cool the world, not only fed it. So that is our focus. And all the technology that we are building is towards enhancing our core dynamics, which is the remote certainty of the data in agreement with the farmer and the companies in order to share that through the blockchain technology. That is actually our main focus. And in technology, it's very important that you have a focus because otherwise, resources are scarce, and you get to produce something that, if you spread the resources all along rather than deep, you get not to have the breakthrough that you were looking forward. So that is our core that core focus. And if you ask me about the vision on what is
Yeah.
going to happen, I really think that in the next 5 years, there will be no crop on the surface of the earth that will not be verified for a climate objective, being the carbon footprint, the environmental impact coefficient for fertilizers, and responsible agronomic use of agrochemicals, the sustainable land use, or you name it, whatever sustainable regenerative KPI will be measured from soybeans to tomatoes. And so, because that is going to happen, it's going to be very important that that verification is reliable. And what we think that the future vision will hold for us is that as we increase building technology in that space and farmers getting to share that technology and ways they farm their crop out of showing how they manage their crops at the farm with companies, then you will not only read a crop story, but you will eventually you walk into a crop story and understand how that farmer is virtually producing their crops, and to be a space of encounter for the companies that we already support with the farmers engagement to virtually encounter themselves and continue producing a better environmental agriculture for the world as a whole. So we are thinking in the metaverse evolution of the crop story, right?
That
And the
would
field
be really
story
cool. That would be
over
really
time.
cool to
Yes,
see. Yeah,
yes,
that would be really
that's
cool.
I think that's eventually will happen. But in entrepreneurship is all about holding a big vision while taking the small steps
Small steps, yes.
one in front of the other, yeah, to make it that happen. So that we are in that business.
Okay. Do you believe, Diego, that blockchain technology can be misused, or maybe in the future it might undermine food security? Because food security has always been an issue that has been understated. Sometimes it's overstated, but it's still there. Food insecurity, food security. So, do you think that blockchain might affect that in the longer term?
So I think that blockchain is not different in that case to Excel. Excel is a very widespread,
Yeah.
great tool, but if you input Excels with garbage, you will output Excels with garbage, right? So
Yeah.
it's not only important how you use blockchain in order to conduct process on an automated way, run smart contracts, verify things on a scalable industrial way. The most important thing is how you involve the actors that input the information into the blockchain for that information to have to be valuable in the very first place and to be reliable. So I think that that is something that will not only apply to agriculture, to any use of blockchain that people are applying that, even for cryptos, even for Web3 objectives, or
Yeah.
whatever you are tackling, you need to do it in a way that blockchain is wisely used. Because as a technology, it's not good or bad. It's just a technology. It can provide us with a
Yeah.
solution, provide that that solution is correctly focused.
Absolutely. So, do you think, I mean, where do you see blockchain technology moving in 5 to 10 years? And I'm just not speaking ucrop regards, but as a overall, you've worked in hedge funds, you've worked in investment, so you know how the market is looking right now. So, what do you think the market is going to look like in 5 to 10 years for blockchain agriculture technology? And I assume that it's gonna spread like wildfire. It's gonna spread wide, and the portfolio is getting to get more and more diversified.
So as long as companies and people between each other are celebrating contracts, and we do that every day on different routines and behaviors that we have during the day, I think there's a good case of blockchain to make those contracts reliable, peer-to-peer certain, in a
Yeah.
way that it can manage decentralization. But decentralization in a way that it's immutable, and understanding is there for us to share, for us to convey on a shared truth, right? For the redundancy, right? But it's trying to establish a collective point of views on something that are immutable to share a truth amongst us. And I think that blockchain will play a lot of that in terms of the underlying infrastructure to make those agreements happen. in any other of the human behavior life. Um, you will be nowadays you will be seeing that in metaverse models where I know a peer-to-peer transaction on a digital asset, say a valuable sword or a valuable bow and arrow on a digital game is exchanged between from the proprietary digital asset from one party to another on a peer-to-peer manner, but you will be able to walk then you up to the fact that you will be able to walk into a renting park out a car park station and being able to unlock a car with your phone and check it without even going through a renting office, but just because you have arranged that agreement for renting that car on the blockchain, and you have
Yeah.
just walk into the car and check it away and leave it where. So it will make the world more simpler in ways that we interact for contract matters, and it will most likely be the technology that we use for making those decisions on a daily basis. Other than that, I think that the world will continue being the world that we know for the large transactions, because the decentralization is a great promise in order to simplify life, but it's but but it might not be the solution for all our
All. Yeah.
needs in terms of economic and social behaviors.
Okay. Lastly, my very last question to you would be, what trends do you think are shaping the culture technology industry, Agtech industry right now, especially now that blockchain has been added onto it? I know that you think, metaverse, the future, digital, and everything, but right now, what more trends are shaping the industry as we speak?
So I think that the largest trend positively is the sustainable trend, and the fact that the paradigm of feeding the world has shifted to not only feeding the world but cooling the world. So that is something that, as I said before to you, didn't happen for the last 11,000 years. So imagine that paradigm shifting now in the next 10 years. I mean, it's a major breakthrough. It's a major change in the agriculture way. It's a major change in the role farmers have. So that is
Yeah.
rebels going through the agriculture space that are disrupting everything. So one very, and this is positive, right? Because this is positive disruption. So
Yeah.
we're trying to have a more environmental and secure food infrastructure, and that is so can only be positive for us. One of the positive trends that is happening within this major trend is climate finance.
Yeah.
We are seeing more and more banks and its financial institutions willing to finance growers on discounted cost of capital should they prove and verify sustainable practice on the farm in the way they produce crops, but on the way they use the land as well. So if you're producing on a non-deforested field, right? And you have not deforested that since 2008 in a proven way, and you're managing and you're doing corn. And as you do the corn on that non-deforested fields, you are managing your fertilizers on a responsible way by making sure that you apply those fertilizers and those fertilizers are not running into wetlands, because once the fertilizer runs and meet water, it produces oxido nitroso that pollutes 300 times more than the CO2. So you're being responsible with not polluting the environmental with more greenhouse emissions. And in that way, and you're taking care of the earth by not cutting trees that are responsible of or deforesting the yeah the vegetation that is responsible of
Yeah.
capturing those CO2 in the very first place. So as you do that, we're seeing that there's a norm called CBI, Climate Bond Initiative, that takes care of those protocols, and we're seeing that more financial institutions are willing to lend money to people and to farmers on a discount basis by verifying that practices. And climate finance, it's something that is coming huge in
Yep.
a really fast pace and even faster than CO2 offsetting. Because in order to have proper CO2 offsetting, and eventually to have CO2 credit markets establishing, you will need to promote those CO2 sequestration, and finance will have a big role in doing that, making sure that projects are being financed because their sustainability practices are verified. So I think that this is probably the largest trend within the macro trend of sustainability that is happening as we speak in agriculture.
I'm actually absolutely thrilled to hear you say all of this because, like I said earlier as well, it's a very understated fact, and I don't think many people are putting more heads together to actually think on how we're actually going to overcome this. And climate finance, that's important. No, maybe it might not seem important right now, but in a decade, in 2 decades, in 5 years, it's going to be very important. And with the way we're going, with the way environment is going, sustainability is going to be a very, very big part of it. So I'm actually thrilled to know that a company such as yours is actually working wholeheartedly towards it. So it's a very big accomplishment, I would say, and kudos to you for that. It's absolutely delightful to know that somebody is actually working on climate safe crops as well, climate smart crops, and working towards what carbon dioxide emission is actually doing to the environment, the planet as a whole. That's absolutely delightful. It was absolutely delightful to talk to you. I think I've learned more about this technology from talking to you than I did on researching on it. Because knowing somebody's perspective who's actually working on the technology on a daily basis, it actually opens up, multiple horizons in everybody's mind. But that was my last question for the day, and I'm absolutely delighted to have had this conversation with you. I would love to actually host another podcast with you as well to actually know more insights on ucrop, maybe in a couple of months, so we can see what more progress has been made, the futures that you were talking about that you wanted to add to the platform, their progress rate and their growth rate as well. And I think that would be all for now. But
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you, Fulgan. I
much.
mean, yeah, well, very thrilled of being here, and thank you for the opportunity. We're just trying to do our contribution. This is a big problem. There's a lot of
Yep.
opportunity in the space, and hopefully we'll see more companies such as ours trying to
Yeah.
bring their small piece to solving this huge problem that we have ahead, which is climate change, right? And anyway, thank you for having me here and being able to share our experience with you. Looking forward for the
Absolutely.
next podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I'll ask them to set it up right now. So we have that
No
bookmarked
problem.
in the calendar months ago as well. But good luck to you. Good luck to you, Corp. And I wish you lots of growth and success for your company. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fulgan. Bye bye. Bye bye to
Bye.
all.